And a very good morning to you. Gee, I nearly missed my cue there for what is a very important talkback program this morning, as we love her coming into the station every month to give us an update on what's happening. Of course, I speak of none other than Karen Andrews, the member for McPherson. It's a very good morning on this cosy morning here on the Gold Coast in Tweed.
Well, good morning, and it's always a pleasure to be back. And it is a little bit cool this morning, but the skies are beautiful blue, so I'm sure it will warm up.
It will warm up, yes, but it's amazing how they start talking about snow in Stanthorpe, and it's usually just slushy snow anyhow, but it's just part of what we don't see regularly, and yes. I think that's a good thing.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
All right, Karen, well, we've got a big year finish coming up. Here we are, end of July. You've got a big birthday in end of August.
Oh my goodness! Yes,
and I've got a big birthday beginning of September.
Well,
so we've got Thank you. So something to look forward to as we wind down this year. Indeed. And what a year it's been!
Yeah.
What a year it has been. Before Karen and I get into some comment on federal politics, an invitation to you, our listener out there, because this is an opportunity that you get once a month, and it's a worthwhile opportunity for you to have a chat directly with Karen on things that might be concerning you in our world here at the present time. You can call Karen right now if you wish on 5520 8888. We've got a couple of things we're going to talk about to start the program with, but why don't you get in early and pose your question, because Karen and I, just off air before we got our cue to come on air, we were talking about how our world seems to be in a total mess at the present time, not to mention the Trump event that took place on the weekend,
yes.
which was once again a horrid attack on democracy. But in one way, it's a warning for us here in Australia as well.
It certainly is. Because
we see tragedy every night on our television sets, and it's becoming monotonous, sadly.
Yes, look, it is. Every time you tune into the news, you're hearing about youth crime, even more crime at a whole range of in a whole range of different areas. We're hearing about domestic violence, arson attacks. It is really just bad news after bad news all the time about things that affect us very personally. Then you start adding on to that all of the cost of living problems that everyone's encountering at the moment, and it's really hard to see what some of the positives are there happening out in the world. They're definitely there, but just at the moment it seems like we have to look that little bit harder to find them.
Yes, and the extra protection for our politicians is not something that we take lightly, but really everyone, the man in the street, the lady in the street, violence is just next to them every day, it appears.
Look, it certainly is, and I'm happy to have a chat about protection of politicians, but when I was the Minister for Home Affairs, I had a 24/7 AFP protection detail with me. And so everywhere I went, there were federal agents who were responsible for ensuring my safety. And it was really interesting because for the first time I really noticed that there are some things that I hadn't done simply because I didn't feel safe to do so. So obviously when I had armed AFP agents with me, I was safe to walk anywhere at any time of the day or night, and I did. I walked at night. But it reminded me of how uncomfortable I would have been if I'd stepped out at night to walk, and people should feel safe when they go out and go for a walk, even if it's after dark. But people don't feel safe, and that's something that politicians at all levels really need to start looking at, because crime is at a point where people don't feel safe, even in their own homes during the day, let alone stepping out to walk at night.
Yes, we've got a big fight in front of us in terms of legislation and everything else. Okay, let's move on. In the state budget that was handed down this week, there was money allocated. The dear old light rail. I mean, it seems to be with us forever. But anyhow, there was money handed down for stage 3 of the light rail. But at this stage 4 is still looking with a question mark over it.
Well, look, light rail is something that gets raised with me everywhere that I go, and people, particularly from Burleigh South, are really concerned about what the impact of it is going to be. Now, I'm not aware that there's any funding at all for stage 4 of the light rail, which is south of Burleigh, at all. The state opposition has come out and said that they will go through a process of reviewing the light rail, but every single day people contact me and they're concerned about the impact, particularly along the Gold Coast Highway at Palm Beach, the impact that will have on people's lifestyle, those people who live there now, the impacts with car parking, which is already quite dire, the fact that there are significant delays in the traffic, you get stuck in that regularly coming along the Gold Coast Highway. So people are very rightly concerned about what the impact is going to be of having the light rail go down the Gold Coast Highway through Palm Beach. Now, there have been very strong advocates in the community that have stood up consistently for many years now, and they want to and they need to be listened to. And I guess one of my criticisms of the state government has been that they didn't take the opportunity to listen to what the people in Palm Beach in particular were saying, because they're the ones that are going to be immediately affected by any light rail going through there. So it is time to listen to the community, not just pay lip service to them, but listen to what the community has to say, because there's got to be a better solution.
Yes, and as much as some people might say it's not progress, when you look at Southport, where the light rail is now a part of the community, it's blended in finally, and the freedom of movement for people to get to places is an advantage.
Yep.
And but the Palm Beach section in particular, with the massive increase in high-rise development there are obvious things that the man in the street can see, with parking difficulties and traffic flow even now.
Yes.
So there are some big issues there that they haven't really communicated to the community as to what the final plan will be.
Exactly, and you're right with all of the high-rise development that's going through there, because what people are saying to me is that the units that are being sold there, it's not affordable housing. It's very pricey for starters, which means that people will have to go further west to find more affordable places to live. And there's limited public transport as you go into the areas that really need good public transport systems. And people are saying these units have, probably a couple of people living there, a couple of cars. There may only be one car space that's allocated to that unit, which means that the second vehicle is out on the road anyway, and there's just nowhere for people to park. So what people are saying is that the light rail, particularly through Palm Beach, is only going to service those people who live adjacent to the light rail, but their lifestyle is likely to be significantly affected anyway, because they'll have cars basically rat running through their streets down the back to get out of the blockages on the Gold Coast Highway. And there'll be nowhere for them and their visitors to park.
Yes, it's so logical. It's not rocket science, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
Yes, so if you've got a question you'd like to pose to Karen on the light rail and express concerns or express support for it, why don't you give us a call right now? We'd love to hear your version of what's happening in our world that we live in at the present time. 5520 8888 is the number for you to talk directly with Karen Andrews. This is something that I really have I've been following for quite some time now. In Melbourne, earlier this week, 2 tobacco stores were the target of arson attacks, and over the past few weeks there's been many others. Here on the Gold Coast, there seems to be tobacconists popping up everywhere. And to me, it seems like the same situation is being built that we're going to see that's taking place in Melbourne at the present time. Right at the beginning of it, though, why are we still seeing large amounts, volumes of cigarettes and now vaping? I mean, the vaping part has only aggravated what we already had learnt from many years of people smoking, and why people are still looking at packets of cigarettes and vapes for enjoyment, I cannot understand. It's more like a development for cancer and death, if anything. So the whole question is really getting mixed up, Karen.
Look, it definitely is. Look, there continue to be smokers in our community now, and cigarettes are expensive because of the excise It's raising the prices of tobacco. Every packet of cigarettes has a health warning on it, but it is an addictive substance, and there are people who still continue to smoke. Now, what we're seeing is that they're looking to buy the cigarettes at the cheapest price that they can.
Karen, all those things you just mentioned were with us for many years,
Yes.
until we got to the point where we started to take active, visible action on the cigarette packs, as you said,
Yes.
and the excise duty going up.
Yeah.
Why on earth do we introduce vaping then? Why was legislation developed to allow vaping to come into the country?
Well, it was an alternate product that was developed. It was seen, I guess, initially as an alternative to cigarettes, but they're also full of chemicals as well. They were largely unregulated. There's much more regulation around them now. There's changes to how they're going to be sold, but you've just got to look at who they're targeting, and it really is primarily the younger people. They come in a range of different flavours: strawberry, raspberry, different colours. It's there to appeal to younger and younger people all the time, and it really is doing so. So people think that vapes are safer than cigarettes, and quite frankly, it's just a different form of evil in terms of what people are drawing into their lungs, and the long-term impacts of vapes, I would say, is still reasonably unknown because they haven't been around for that long, so that we can we know with any certainty what the indications will be on our health into the future. But what we're seeing is that we're getting illegal products coming into this country, and that's tobacco, and that is vapes that are coming across the border. Now, it's the role of the Australian Border Force to stop these products at the border, but they're unable to stop everything that comes into the country. We don't have 100% scanning on all containers that are coming in. It's good what's done, but it's not 100%, which means the product is getting out into the community. At that point, it becomes effectively a state policing matter because there's an illegal product that's being sold. But what's happening with many of the tobacconist shops that have started up, all the little pop-ups that you might see in shopping centres and local areas as well, is that basically as a consumer you can walk in, you can ask for the cheapest packet of cigarette, you'll probably be offered a legitimate cigarette that has come appropriately into our country, but if you say no, really, what's the cheapest? That's where you'll see something come out from underneath the counter, which is the illicit tobacco that's coming into the country, whether it's actually as a cigarette or whether it's as what's known as chop chop, which is the tobacco that's coming in.
Yes,
it's much cheaper. It has no excise associated with it as well, and people are choosing to buy that. But it is an illicit tobacco product. So what I would say to all of our listeners today is if you see that happening, please do report it to the local police, because we need to shut down that trade here in Australia. It's not only an illegal product, it is also seriously damaging the legal tobacconists that are selling product here, legitimate product as well. So it's got a dual impact, but it is an illegal product and it shouldn't be being sold here in Australia, and we all need to be vigilant and be reporting it to the local police.
Karen, some of our listeners might be confused about the situation in Victoria. Why are they self-destructing in Victoria because of some gangland operation where there's a gang, or for want of a better term, taking some of the profit, and the tobacconist hasn't agreed to it? So that's where the illegal activity of arson comes into play.
Look, it's probably many reasons that these tobacco shops are being targeted. It's very competitive amongst those illegal suppliers of tobacco, so they're protecting their own areas and making sure that they're shutting down other shops that are in competition to them.
Yep.
Look, there is probably a component of serious and organised crime in there as well too, so you're seeing some fighting in between the gangs as well. And they will stop at virtually nothing.
Well, it certainly needs some activity at the top of the federal government legislative area for some serious attention.
It certainly does, and it means that both levels of government need to be working much better together. So federally, to make sure that we're stopping more product at the border, which means that more money needs to be injected into the Australian Border Force, but from a state point of view, to make sure that state policing is working with its federal counterparts, whether that's the Australian Federal Police or the Australian Border Force, so that when this product does get through the state policing, do have the resources necessary to be able to follow up, to investigate, and to shut down and make arrests.
A big task.
Very much so.
Okay, well, look, we're now waiting for your calls. It's 21 minutes past 9 here at your station 89.3. We'd love to have a chat with you as well. Why don't you join us with Karen Andrews, the federal member for McPherson, and put your question to her or express your support for something that you believe is on the right track or not. 5520 8888 is the number for you to call right now, and you'll get directly on to Karen. Well, we've spoken about it each time you've been in here, and the cost of living crisis for our communities is not any better. It's still raging out there, and we're getting hit with daily increases in insurance, power, you name it, petrol. One of the big part, of course, is in housing. It's a big part of that, of our community. And if interest rates don't come down this year, it's a long year in front of those people already hit so hard with high interest rates on their mortgages, etc. When do you think we'll have any relief this year, or will it be next year?
Well, I think that that it would be wise for everyone to prepare for the possibility of there being an interest rate rise, and if that doesn't happen, then that's a good thing.
Yes.
For us all. It's not clear what the Reserve Bank is going to do. It's clearly going to be watching the situation. It's going to be looking at inflation, trying to keep inflation to where it needs to be. It's currently sitting at a much higher level than what the Reserve Bank needs it to be. So they will take action if necessary to bring inflation back into their target range. That means that they will use every lever they have, and that means moving interest rates. So that has an impact to the homeowners who've already suffered enormously with successive interest rate rises, but it also has a flow-on effect for those people that that own properties and are renting those out as well, because that means that there's increases that are coming through in terms of the rent that people have to pay to rent a property.
Yeah,
so
if they can find one.
Absolutely, and here on the Gold Coast, it is very hard to find a property, particularly a house. That's what people are saying to me at the moment. So they're finding it very difficult to find a house with a yard, particularly those people that have kids and want their kids to be able to go and play outside. It's increasingly difficult, and if they can find something, there's a lot of competition for it, and the prices are very high.
The Australian dream, it doesn't seem to be a dream any longer. It looks so tough, and the future doesn't look bright for owning your own home at the present time.
Exactly, and we hear so many people saying that their kids are not going to be able to afford anything until the parents die.
Yes.
Which is very sad.
Let's hope we can fix it. And we have our first caller on the line. It's good morning to Jacqueline. Jacqueline, go ahead. What's your question? Jacqueline, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm part of the silent majority of people who live in the Burleigh area who are very, very keen on the Stage 4 light rail proceeding to the airport. And I'm just wondering if Karen and the people she's been listening to have actually really listened to the older population who live in the area, who need a safe, reliable form of transport to get to and from the airport, and for their kids and grandkids to get up to Griffith University. And if they've really got an open ear to all the demographics who live in this part of Queensland.
Oh, hello, Jacqueline. Look, thank you very much for your call. And you are absolutely right. There are people who are very much in favour of the light rail being extended all the way through to the airport. And I've actually said that myself as well, that I am supportive of light rail going to the airport. It is just the route that it's going to take to get there. All voices need to be listened to, and I absolutely do have an open mind to what the various options may well be. And in fact, I've had many discussions with people who are supportive of the light rail and who live in the area, and their voices need to be listened to. Your voice, Jacqueline, needs to be listened to as well. What I would like is a very open, consultative process where all views can be catered for, so that those people who are very supportive of can give the reasons as to why and how they see it's going to be working for them, be beneficial to the residents and also the tourists that come into the area. And for those people who have concerns, let's listen to those concerns, and if it's at all possible, address those concerns and come up with a workable public transport system for the Gold Coast. So yes, I am absolutely open to all views on that.
I'm really glad to hear that, because I don't know a single person over the age of 60 who is not in support of a light rail extension to the airport. And I have, for everyone who has visitors coming from the southern states, they're also very, very keen on a safe, affordable transport form that will get them up to Surfers Paradise and into the area. So I think it has a really huge economic benefit, this whole part of Queensland. So I'm glad to hear that you're not just hearing the loud voices of the young mobile people who live around Palm Beach.
Yeah, and public transport is very, very important to us, and the Gold Coast is a very different city to every other city in Australia because it's a linear city, and we have quite large distances to travel from Coolangatta around the Gold Coast airport until you get to Burleigh, Broadbeach, Surfers Paradise, and further north as well. So we have to have something that's workable, but we can't forget the people who are moving further and further inland as well, and we need to make sure that there's appropriate public transport available for them to connect in to the main routes.
That seems reasonable, as long as just not the people jumping up and down with the loudest voices, who tend to be young, mobile and more vigorous, are more likely to express themselves, not the only ones who are being listened to with all of this consultation process.
Definitely not. Jacqueline, I hear your voice and I hear others in support, and I will always listen.
And Jacqueline, before you go, you're obviously over 60 there. I think if we could say that, we're all in this room. We're getting over 60. It'll be great to go clubbing on a Saturday night, but just hopping on the tram and diving up to Surfers Paradise, won't it?
Absolutely. My children, my grandchildren, all my friends, all visitors that come to the area, they all want to know they can safely move around at night and not be held hostage to Ubers and the occasional taxi. You know, but safety is important, and mobility for seniors is important, and for younger people. So it all needs to be taken into the equation, not just the quality of life of one suburban group.
Very well put, Jacqueline. That's a good call. Thank you kindly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Okay, if you'd like to join us, we've got a couple of minutes to go. 55208888 is the number for you to have a chat with Karen Andrews, and that was a good call. And there's always two sides.
You know, there are, and we can't ignore those people that are very supportive, but don't often speak up because they don't see the need to do so. Similarly, there are people who are anti various things as well, and they also don't see that there's a need to speak up. So I'm really pleased that Jacqueline called in, because there are others who are very supportive of it. But let's come up with a workable solution.
Yep, and sometimes we tend to go negative because of the impact. It's so large by minority groups as well, and media. Okay, 55208888. If you'd like to get a quick call in, we'll accept your call and we'll have a chat. I've got a couple of points here I'd like to put to you, Karen, before we finish our program. Federal Opposition Leader Peter Dutton has said the government's 2030 emissions reduction target risks driving Australians into a recession because of energy prices. They look like the energy prices are going to continue to rise. Do you think Australia's on track to meet those obligations for 2030, or should the target be abandoned?
Very good question. Look, I think that it's going to be very difficult to meet the targets that have been set, and particularly taking on board the fact that there are different views on this. People contact me and they're very supportive of renewable energy, very supportive of targets, want us to move away from coal and fossil fuels here in Australia. I understand that perspective as well. I also hear from people who are very concerned about being able to switch on their lights to be able to get the power when they needed it, particularly overnight. And I hate to go down the path of saying that renewables are there when the sun's shining and the wind is blowing, but that is actually true, and we need to do a lot more with our battery storage capability. And in fact, if I can just add in very quickly, when I was the industry minister, one of the things that I announced and gave funding to was a future batteries cooperative research centre to look at what our battery capability was going to be here in Australia. We need to do a lot more with storage of our energy so that what's produced when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining can then be later used. Nuclear is now on the agenda, and I think it's a discussion that we have to have.
Are you in support of nuclear?
I've always been in support of nuclear, and I've spoken to many of the big industrial players about it to see what their interest level would be in setting up their own small modular reactors, and with a lot of caveats, it's been a positive response.
Mm-hmm. Okay, look, we've got a final caller for this morning. Good morning, Yanis. Go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'd like to speak to Karen, please.
Yes, go.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, good morning, Karen. This is Janice speaking. I was just listening to Jacqueline espousing the benefits of the light rail. I must be one of those people over the age of 60 who don't agree with it, and none of my friends agree with it, especially where it is being placed. It should have been placed further west. The Eastern Corridor is already a very, very busy corridor, has plenty of, or should have plenty of public transport. It's very, very disruptive. And if it was placed further west where there is more room for it, it would be much more easily accessible to people who live further west. At the moment, people who live further west have to travel quite long distances if they want to go to the light rail.
Yes.
And then, of course, where do they park? Sorry, there isn't any parking provided.
Yes, look, all good points, and that's why I'm really keen for there to be proper consultation where all of these issues can be aired properly. There's been many discussions, but I don't think the voices have been listened to by the likes of, to be honest, the state government, who's in the driver's seat on this. There's the heavy rail corridor that goes adjacent to the M1, and the M1 is actually at the back of Palm Beach, within a kilometre of the beach there. So it's ideally placed to have a rail route down that corridor. It is time really to start listening, because this is public transport infrastructure that is going to be servicing generations to come, and it is important to get it right.
Very much so. Thank you, Karen.
Okay,
and thank you for calling in, Janice.
Yes, Janice, and thank you for your call, Janice. All right, well, we're over time, but we do that each time you're here. We tend to drift over time. I look forward to you being back with us again in August, for your big month in August, Karen,
yes,
as well.
Indeed.
All right, Karen, thank you so much. It's been a very informative insight into federal politics, and you supply that beautifully each time you're here. We'll look forward to talking to you again next month. Bye now.
Bye now.